watching the BTC Racing Line for the fans.
Hello and welcome to the BTC Racing Line once again. We should have been at Thruxton, and actually we should have been here earlier today, but the whole Zoom network went down, which meant that we had to delay our podcast recording for you. But thank you very much for joining us. This is the Thruxton episode, what would have been rounds 10, 11 and 12. And joining me is our racing lineup, Tom Chilton, Josh Cook and Creasy. Hello, boys.
Hello.
How are you all? How are you doing?
Good.
Good.
Rearranging your plans so that we could do this recording for this evening. And thank you very much for doing so. So today we have a very special guest joining us on the BTC Racing Line, and we're very delighted to be welcoming this person into our virtual door. Kind of like a cars in your eyes, if you like. They'll be coming through our smoke and mirrors and into our Zoom room in just a second. But boys, are you ready?
Yeah. Who is it?
Okay, so our mystery guest, their favourite colour is blue. Their holidaying favourite location is Fuerteventura, the Canary Islands. Their favourite racing legend is Nigel Mansell.
Michael Crees.
And they have more guitars than cars, our particular guest. And their most shameful moment was having to wear their mother's tights in a production of Snow White in the third year of primary school. Josh, Tom, Creasy, hands together and welcome the BTC Racing Line mystery guest, Cars in Your Eyes, is Alan Hyde!
Heidi.
Alan, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us on the BTC Racing Line.
I can't say, Rory, for 1 minute that was the most shameful thing I've ever done.
I knew you were going to say
far
that.
Worse.
I tell you what, the most worrying thing is where I found that research about you.
Well, I know there is a photograph in circulation. Please don't make it public. No.
What, one of you in the tights? No, we'll be fine. You know, and you are only a nipper in any
brown
way.
Tights.
It just it doesn't sound good. Now, Alan, just to say, anyone that's new to the British Touring Car Championships will maybe perhaps not know your connection, the fact that you're so almost synonymous really with the actual entire championship itself. So for those who perhaps have never heard of you before or don't know who you are, just tell us why you think we're so excited to have you here on the BTC Racing Line.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm slightly humbled by the fact that you gave me such a nice big build-up. It was like going to a comedy night and thinking you were going to get Ricky Gervais and ending up with Joe Pasquale. So I'm sort of flattered by your intro.
And so, Alan, I'm sure you're missing it like us. We should be at Thruxton. We're not. We're all sitting in our homes instead, and even got our pets with us. By the way, just quickly, Josh, is Alan going to make an appearance, the cat, tonight, do you think?
This is a bit embarrassing because I don't know if Alan Hyde knows that I named my cat after him.
There you go, see?
I mean, it's still light outside. Alan, the cat, is probably asleep in a flower bed somewhere.
And is Alan a ginger cat?
I wish he was.
Right,
I've got a ginger dog, so we needed to keep the ginger balance a little bit in check. So we've got a grey and white cat called Alan.
I absolutely hate cats. I have to say.
Oh no!
I detest them. So I've got a.
He's a nice one though. We love Alan Cat. He's a nice one. He's okay. He's good. He's good. He's a nice cat.
I'm terribly allergic to them. They make me really sort of the eyes and my neck all swells up. But I've had a particularly troublesome moggy in my back garden of late that was daily leaving a message in my garden.
Yeah.
I decided to research online the best way to deal with a troublesome cat. And it was like maybe a couple of visits per day, and it was really beginning to annoy me. And I did research it, and there is a product which basically it's like a PIR for your burglar alarm, and it detects movement, and it sends out an audio signal that we can't hear, but a cat can hear.
Mm-hmm.
And gradually they learn that it's not a good place. So
My wife.
You are in
He was going to
trouble now,
come steaming
Creasy.
in at some point. I mean, Creasy just poised. It's just poised. It was just a question of time before something like that came out.
So I have because one didn't work, two didn't work, but I've now got a matrix of infrared beams going across my garden. It is definitely an Alan the Cat unfriendly zone in my back garden.
Entrapment.
Oh.
It sounds it sounds
Yeah.
terrifying, Alan, to be honest. Now, you've
It
seen
is if you're a cat, yeah.
Josh, are you now going to rename your cat?
Yeah, I'm pretty.
No,
hurt
no,
by
no,
that,
no,
actually.
I'm
What a way to
humbled.
ruin my Sunday.
No, it was after Alan Gow anyway. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Now, Alan, you've seen all three of these boys race. We haven't seen, obviously, that this season. But what do you think of our lineup here at BTC?
It's a strong lineup, isn't it? I was impressed and surprised in equal measure as the names were announced, because it's a heck of a squad. It's got So I'll start with Tom, because I spoke about Tom when he had his first ever podium in the BTCC. I guess I've spoken about Tom every race meeting he's ever done in the BTCC, and a few of the World Touring Car events as well. He came into the British Touring Car Championship as the youngest driver, and the youngest driver to get a podium, and the huge amount of experience that Tom's now got in the championship almost belies the fact that he's not an old man. He's been doing this forever, but he's been doing it since 17. Tom, were you 17?
I started testing the British Touring Car when I was 16 years old.
16, yeah.
And then, what was it, 14, 15 days or something after I turned 17 years old, it was then third place at Brands GP. And so, yeah, it's been doing a long time. I think I've done 350 something race starts in the BTCC.
Have you really?
And I don't know how many commentated on in the World Touring Cars, but poor you having to speak about me for nearly 400 races, mate.
You were a breath of fresh air, actually, because when you came into the championship, you were, I think I used to describe you as Tigger, because you used to, you were such an excited little Duracell bunny every time you got to, which is not surprising. 17 years old at a race meet, it's still
I still am, mate. You just need to ask the missus.
Yeah. Well, I feel very sorry for her, is all I can say. But you were such an excitable fellow, and you do have this amazing enthusiasm. And the most impressive thing about Tom Chilton, to answer your question, Rory,
Is his wallet.
Not mine.
Not Tom's.
The Bugatti or the plane.
The most impressive thing about Tom Chilton is his instant recall. So you can ask him a question after a qualifying session or whatever. You can ask him about the second lap when he was on circuit qualifying. You can ask him about the fourth lap. And I'm right, I know, Tom. You can pick. You can go back and almost corner for corner name that lap. I've never known a driver able to do it quite like you do.
Yeah, I don't know why. It's really strange, because everything else, sort of, if you go back to school, I know it seems like a long time ago now, I'm 35, but I couldn't remember what I read. I was like really dyslexic. But you get me on a racetrack, I can tell you what kilometre an hour I had on what apex and what lap I did something or someone made a mistake and then I overtook them. I remember what lap it happens on each race. And it's really weird. My memory's like really good. And I remember what setup I've run there for the last 16 years in different cars, what spring, camber, roll bar setting, almost spring rates to a point. I remember everything through all the years, every roll center change, ride height, you name it. I remember it all. Tire pressure tweak, just because the circuit's changed by 4 degrees. I know that's a different tweak there. I remember it all. But then you get me outside of motorsport. Can't remember what I had for breakfast yesterday. I just don't understand why I'm like Rain Man in motorsport, but outside of it, it's weird.
Yeah. Look a bit like him as well.
What about Josh Cook, Alan? What talent he is, isn't he?
So Josh, now he's found a home in the BTCC. That's a really important thing. I think Josh will probably agree with me on that. Always a quick driver, that was never in question, but finding a team and a home that you're comfortable in, rather than from year to year changing a team and having to settle in with a new bunch of people, a new team, new personnel. It's a wonderful position to be in for Josh. And last year was the proof of that, wasn't it? Fourth in the championship, only missing out on the independence title by couple of points, was it, Josh? Not that I want to rake over old 1 point, was it?
Maybe 1 or 2, something like that.
I can always look it up.
Oh.
I mean, obviously, as a
Tom might know.
Yeah, Tom will know. He remembers everything.
How did I get on?
2 points. It was.
I think it was 2 points. Was it 202 and 200 or 201 and 199 or something? I can't remember.
Very close.
Very close indeed. And
I was only 198 behind them.
We'll see what happens this season, Creasy.
Shall I come on to Creasy? I haven't really finished with Josh yet, to be honest.
Carry on with Josh, definitely. No, not at all.
I absolutely want to finish up with Josh. Josh is, how old are you now, Josh?
28.
Josh is a future British touring car champion.
I agree.
100%.
I agree. Yes.
Right.
Definitely applause to that. I think so.
Checks in the notes. Thanks, mate.
And on to Creasy, who didn't just ride into town, he exploded into town in a season in the Ginetta GT5, in the Ginetta GT4 Super Cup, in the AM class, won the championship in his first year of car racing. But the thing, similar to Tom, really, when Tom started in the BTCC, he was just effervescing with excitement every time being out on the circuit. Sometimes I think the excitement sort of bubbled over a little bit in the first year, didn't it? Michael?
Yeah, definitely.
But it was a learning year, and his enthusiasm, his excitement, and his pace was such a, again, use the phrase again, such a breath of fresh air to see in the Ginetta Championship. And now, with 1 year of BTCC behind him, about to go into his second year, remind me of the story, Michael, how you came about the motor racing world, because I know John Surtees was part of this, and John Surtees is, for me, one of the absolute stars of motorsport that ever will be.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, racing at Buckmore Park, which John and his family bought, that's where I'd only done some hire kart racing, and he invited me down to do the Henry Surtees Foundation after winning their local championship. And I ended up qualifying 21st out of 25 with the likes of Ben Barnacle and Ross Gunn, Piers Pryor, and all these good standard karters at the time. And I ended up driving from 21st and winning the heavyweights, fastest lap of the day, and coming second overall to Callum Bradshaw, who's not a bad peddler either. And from there, that's where I got my chance. He sort of said, "What cars do you race and stuff?" And I said, "I don't know." I said, "Where I race." And then he made a few phone calls and got me into the Ginetta with Want to Race with Ben Highland from GRDC Cup, and then it went from there. And that was how it just. I've always dreamt of racing, but I've never had the money to do it. And I'm lucky enough, I picked up a few sponsors and a few people like a normal guy, and now I'm here.
Yeah, and we're all very grateful. So that was a long answer, Rory, but I think that's the answer.
No, it was great. Thruxton as a circuit, Alan, what do you always look forward to most? Because these days it's pretty much your local circuit, isn't it?
It is, and it was in my mind when I moved down to this neck of the woods from a lifetime of living in South London and living near Brands Hatch. It was the first circuit I ever commentated at. I did podiums in 1993 here at Thruxton, and the structure going into race control is still there now. And I look at it. I was there last week. I was riding my bicycle around the circuit, and I look up at the podium and think, goodness, that's where this whole journey started for me, because it was never my plan to talk about motor racing for anything that approaches a living. What do I like about it? I like the fact that it's got a huge amount of character. It's quirky. It's outdated in places, but it's a circuit that requires
balls.
The most, well, I wasn't going to say that, but yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And blooming great big ones. And I like that because doing my job, it adds another level to what they're saying. It's just the time for laughing and joking is gone. They're doing an amazing job that I could never dream of doing. And so it's a respect thing, really. It's the out and out speed of the circuit.
And I know you've said in the past, Alan, as well, that you always can tell when a driver's just finished this, they're racing or done a circuit at Thruxton. You've always said
Tom
that,
Chilton, particularly
yeah,
Tom Chilton.
You've always said that they sort of almost have a different reaction. You can see it in their eyes that they've just literally had just that huge adrenaline rush that's possibly higher at Thruxton than it is at any other circuit.
A maniacal stare, and in the case of Tom Chilton, maniacal giggling. It's something that happens after.
When I'm going sideways because I'm smiling, and like you're on the limit, you should never be turning right. You should always be slightly like that. And
have you ever cycled Thruxton, Tom? Have you ever cycled it? Have you ever cycled Thruxton?
I have cycled Thruxton. Yeah,
I
cycled it. I've run it. I've gone around in a golf buggy. I've obviously gone around in many racing cars, and I was an instructor there for years, wasn't I? When I was 17, 18 years old.
It makes you realise that Woodham Hill is called a hill for a reason. You don't really notice it in a car, but you blooming notice it on a bike. That's for sure. See Josh nodding away.
What a track! That's my home track as well.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
yeah, love it. And yeah, it is a bit of a hill, especially when you're walking it.
Yeah.
But yeah, you don't really appreciate every sort of, and that's why it's good to go on a. As drivers, we go on track walks on an evening before, or the day before we start, because all those small things that you don't really appreciate when you're in a car, and actually you can pick up things like what you should and shouldn't do behind the wheel that might compromise you at those places. So that's it's a good point of why we do those track walks, to pick up those bits. So yeah, it's I'm very fond of Thruxton. I think I've had 3 wins on the last 3 visits there, and with BTC last year, we took the lap record. So took that off of Dan Camish by 1,000th of a second, I think it was. So
here we are.
Yeah, it's a mega track.
What about Creasy? What are your thoughts on Thruxton?
Yeah, I hate it. It's just too fast for me.
Are you being serious?
Honestly, the first time I went there was this, obviously, 2019. Never been there before. Never rocked up there, and I was like listening to a few of the lads and that, and I thought, it can't be that hard. It's like pretty much flat out. But I'll tell you what, because even on that tyre test, we only done like a lap out the pits and the car blew up, so I didn't even have any testing.
I remember that. Yeah.
And then I got to that first corner, that first left, Goodwood. Is it Goodwood? No, the one before that.
Noble.
Oh my God, I absolutely shit myself. I tried to go through there flat, and I just nearly ended up in the trees, the far side of the. Yeah, it was very sketchy, and but once I went back there the second time, I was dry. Yeah, no, I can't say that. I can't say that. It was the fact that I had a dyslexic tyre guy, and it nearly sent me off. But it was a bit of a horror story around Thruxton so far. So I'm looking forward to go back there in the FK8 Honda, because this car is just amazing, mate. And you know exactly what it's going to do, and you can, like Tom said, you can pretty much slide it and predict what it's going to do. Where I didn't really have that sort of. I wasn't that comfortable in last year's car.
Does anything that Creasy get through to the final cut in this podcast? Does anything that he say get through?
It was the wave at the beginning.
It's true. I did have a dyslexic tyre guy. I had like 2.5 bar in the front left and like 1.5 bar. And I was driving the wheels off and thinking, I've been here twice now and I still can't go any quicker.
Incredible. I think it's great that we all seem to have some sort of real personal connection with Thruxton, because actually, even for me, as someone that's never driven a car around it, it was actually the first track I ever went to as part of my sort of, the beginning of my sort of, media career, but it was more of a promotional role back in the day. But so then when I went back, but this time under the sort of, the guise of the British Touring Car Championship, it felt familiar very, very quickly, and I've I always loved it just from the fact that I just knew how quick a track it was, and what a rush it must be.
It's a very friendly circuit, isn't it? It's always a very friendly place to go.
Yeah, it is, and it's nice and open, and it's certainly, you know, and it's you can get quite close to the action, I think, as well when you're at Thruxton, and you can see most of it as well. You don't necessarily have your view blocked that much, you know, compared to the likes of Alton Park, where you almost have to, like, you know, pick your corner and decide where it is you're going to stand. Now, Alan, our three drivers, most memorable moments. There must be moments with each of our drivers, and I appreciate obviously Creasy's career isn't perhaps as long as Josh. See, I think we know what's coming, Josh, don't we? Yes,
I'm looking.
Yeah,
at Josh.
which is why when I thought, you know what am I going to ask Alan Hyde? I thought, I know what I'll do is I'll lull them all into a false sense of security and ask a couple of questions that might seem a bit obvious, and then we'll talk about that incident. Alan, I mean, do you want to start with the Josh story?
Well,
Yeah, let's get out of the way.
I really so Josh, I really like Josh, and I know
Look at that day.
once I tell this story, it doesn't seem like I do, but we have a giggle and we have fun, and for a couple of years I've been lucky enough to go out to Yas Marina at the end of the year in December to do the golf 12-hour race, and Josh has been there both years. It's lovely to see him. It's great to see a friendly face, a smiley face. I interviewed him in December, and this is live stream, so this is TV. So I have a camera crew that go around with me. And in fairness, it's quite a challenging job because I'm quite short and I've got quite short legs, and I'm also quite old. And I have a young Arab cameraman whose legs are twice the length of mine, and he's up and down the pit lane at double speed. So I have to run along and catch up with him. And I wave down the pit lane, get the cameraman to come to me when I want to do an interview. I did a lovely interview with Josh last year, and then finished my interview with a piece to camera. What did I do, Josh?
Well, just as you were turning to the camera, you put your hand up to put it, turns out, onto my shoulder. But I thought you were putting it up, and I was like, I can't leave Alan Hyde hanging here because I'm just not that sort of guy. So as you were moving your hand up, I put my hand up. I thought we'd just embrace on a final seal of approval of a handshake, and we'd part ways. But you literally put your hand on my shoulder, face the camera, and I was stood there live on TV, looking to get your hand, which was now affectionately known as the Hyde slide.
Yeah, the Hyde slide. Now let's sort this out once and for all, Alan. As close to the camera as you can, then, please, Alan. Come on, with the right hand. Josh, likewise with yours. Right hand out. Come on, hand up and down and shake hands, gentlemen. There we have it. Resolved. It's resolved. It's all resolved.
Nice one, Tom. I felt horrible because a mutual friend of ours, Joe Osborne, was watching the live stream, recorded it. Joe Osborne really does need to get a life, and tweeted it, and it was as with the internet it is now. It was almost instant that my phone started buzzing away in my pocket. I went back.
That's when you know, isn't it? Like and like that, Alan. You know, you'll know this as well as I do. Whenever you're in our game, and if you've got talkback or someone talking in your ear, that's one thing. And obviously, whatever you're doing with people in front of you, but like that, when you feel your phone buzz in your pocket, particularly after something's just happened connected with the job, you know, don't you? You know, and you think, oh,
and I knew it wasn't people saying, "What a lovely interview you just did with Josh Cook." It was never going to be that, was it?
It was the Hyde slide. The Hyde slide. Josh, is Alan forgiven?
Of course, no.
We're mates again, are we, Josh? Good.
All good fun. Yeah.
But in fairness, we're part of the same unique club. You know, we're both fair-skinned, freckly, and essentially ginger. Yeah. So
you're not his dad, are you?
We have to,
is this some big reveal? So that all of a sudden it's going to be
we have to look after each other. We gingers, we do.
And Alan, you said earlier you're old. You know, you shouldn't be so hard on yourself. What are you? All of 53 or something?
54 years old. I've had a 54. Lockdown birthday.
Yeah. Oh, did you? Oh, well, many happy returns for that. See, you're just a young whippersnapper. Now, other memorable moments with the other two drivers. Who would you like to go with now?
so two with Tom. So the first one was on circuit. We used to take the podium onto the circuit for all of the touring car podiums. So now we've got such a tight schedule with ITV and the live coverage that we don't have a chance to do that. But we used to, for every touring car podium, it was on the track. Tom's nodding away. So the first memory that I come up with for Tom is being the youngest driver to get onto the podium. I was chuffed to bits when that happened. So all these little podium firsts that you get as a presenter, they're all moments that you really want to get absolutely spot on and get the nice reaction from the crowd. And Matt Neal winning 250 grand, that was one of them. Tom Chilton, the youngest ever driver to be on the BTCC podium.
I think that's a round of applause, isn't it?
It is a round of applause.
It is a great achievement.
It was lovely, and I remember it really well. And the other one is not so good, and I still, this is time for me to apologise really to Tom. Was it a couple of years ago, Tom? You came into Parc Fermé after a race. It was a Brands Hatch. And I locked eyes with you, and I was happy, and I was smiling, and it was brilliant. It was Tom's back. It was a Tom's back moment for the BTCC, and as we locked eyes, and I thought, oh, a lovely moment, and maybe you could finish this story as well, Tom.
Exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd obviously just done 10 years in the British touring cars, and I'd disappeared for sort of 4 years in the world touring cars, and thought I'd come back and do a bit of British and world at the same time. Been struggling a little bit with the Vauxhall to start with, but managed to squeeze out a third place podium, and Alan's like, yeah, Tom's back, and I was so excited I jumped out of the car and whacked my head on the Parc Fermé bar above my head on the car.
and it really did. It was like the famous video of Murray Walker saying to Nigel Mansell, oh, that's quite a bump on your head, does it hurt? And he prods him, and of course it does hurt. But that must have smarted a bit, Tom. I felt horrible.
I was full of adrenaline, which always helps with pain, but I whacked it really hard. And then the next weekend, so literally I flew out 4 days later to Italy because I was racing at Monza, and I had a great race. I fought off Rob Huff behind me and managed winning the race in Monza in the World Touring Cars. And I literally, before I got out of the car, I stopped. Everyone was all clapping, and the camera and Eurosports Live, they're all there. And I stopped. And I looked up before I then stood on the car.
Well, I've always felt guilty about it, Tom, and I have to apologise. I'm very sorry. I felt guilty for that.
It was a comedy moment. Be there forever.
And so, lastly, Michael Crees.
I know what it's going to be, probably.
So Creasy takes the award for being. Creasy takes the award not only for all the things that I said when I first talked about Michael this evening about being such a jolly chap and a breath of fresh air and all of those things that I said, but he takes the award in my book. So if you mention Michael Crees, what do I first think of? I think that he's the first bloke to have got a fine off Alan Gow before he was even a touring car driver.
I knew you was going to say that.
That's fair play. Michael must tell the story.
Well, obviously, you know what it was like, and we decided to make up all these Creasy 777 stickers, and we thought, because we weren't on the main package, we thought our name should be. So we stuck them on every touring car truck and touring car that we could get our hands on. And it come back to bite me, and he wouldn't let me race the final weekend until I had to cough up 500 quid.
Is it only 500?
But this year I got caught again putting them on the WSR truck, and he said if you do it again, it's £1,000.
He's let you off quite lightly, to be honest, but it is a first. He's never found anybody that isn't already in the BTCC.
Yeah, so, exactly. I mean, I'm quite proud of that.
Yeah, well, yes.
Proud of it.
In the grand scheme of things, Creasy, you should be happy about
that. I'm all there for records, mate. You know that.
Right, well, that's a lot of questions about us. Now, Alan, you must have some stories about one of the most awkward mic moments you've had, or there's something that's dodgy that's been said on camera. Tell us, what have you got? There's got to be one that stands out.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, it was. It was. Can I tell this story? Yeah, I suppose I can. I was. Can I tell this story?
Yeah, go on.
I'm not sure I can.
Yeah.
So I had a new girlfriend, and so this is about.
Stop! Don't tell it.
I have to tell it because it's such a cool story. So I had a girlfriend, and she'd been wanting to come along to a touring car meeting for some time. It was about 10 years ago, maybe 12 years ago. And I was putting it off because I'm working. It's very difficult to have, your other half at a race meeting if they're not intrinsically involved in what you're doing. So I put it off. But finally at Donington, I agreed to her coming along. And to be perfectly blunt, she was a pain. She'd been a pain. She was a real pain. So when we first got up to the hotel on Friday night, we got up late because I'd been working late. So we got to the hotel about 12 o'clock, and she said, "Oh, getting ready to go to sleep." And she said, "Oh, what time do you need to be in the circuit in the morning?" So I said, "Oh, I need to be in for 7." So she said, "All right, okay, 7, 6, 5, 4. Okay, we set the alarm for 4." So I said,
"What?
I beg your pardon?" So she said, "No, we need to set the alarm for 4 because I need an hour to shower and hair and makeup, and then so that's another hour, and then I like to chill before we leave." So yes. So it was like being on a red-eye flight. I couldn't believe that I was sort of going to get 3.5 hours kit. So we did that Friday night. We did it again Saturday night, and the Sunday we get to race day, and it was absolutely pouring down from the minute we got there. I did a podium at 9 o'clock, and I was soaking wet, and she was there, but I only saw her very briefly coming in and out of hospitality with a nice hot cup of coffee, and then staying dry somewhere else. Didn't know where she was going. Anyway, in the middle of the afternoon, I finished the podium. I looked like a drowned rat. I was cold. I was miserable. I had a rubbish weekend. And Alan Gow came out from Toka Hospitality, and I was walking down off the podium, and he just went. So I ran over. I thought, "What have I done wrong? What have I done wrong?" He said, "How's it going with the girl?" So I said, "I'll tell you how it's going with the girl. Inside." So we went inside. We went round the back of the hospitality. I said, "She's doing my head in, right? She 3 hours to get ready in the morning. Now I'm freezing cold. I'm soaking wet." And I went off and just said how grumpy I was about it. At which point, in my ear, I heard Ian Titchmarsh, the other commentator, say, "Alan, your mic's on."
Oh no!
He happened to be in the commentary box with Titch at the time, so she heard everything, and she heard the lot. And all I can say is we had a very frosty journey home.
Oh, Alan, that Gordon Brown moment. That's, I mean, in our game, that's the schoolboy error, isn't it?
It was the schoolboy error. The microphone was in my back pocket. I didn't think for a minute that,
incredible. I mean, just to say about our drivers as well, Tom is the one that, remembers everything. Creasy will always make a joke. Josh is the telepathic one, because in asking you the questions, that was going to be the next thing. Our drivers, is there anything you'd like to ask Alan Hyde? This is your chance. Josh, is it fair to say you've probably had your go already?
Yeah.
I mean,
have another go, though, if you wish.
Okay, all right.
Your best question, Josh, would have been, what was her name?
Yeah.
Legal reasons. We're going to keep her. We're going to keep her identity a mystery. Okay,
but we want another name though. Who is the most awkward person you've had to interview?
Oh, the most awkward person to interview. so back in the late 1990s, Peter Cox. Have you heard of Peter Cox? He was a Honda driver, and he is Dutch, and he always swore, particularly on pit lane walkabout. So I do. So, but I don't think it was a particularly bad thing. I just think he didn't realise in translation, because obviously foreign drivers, they come over here, they're dealing with mechanics, engineers in a team environment. The language is always quite flavoursome, isn't it, within a team, and they hear these words all the time, and probably don't know that they're bad words. So every single time he would swear, and then I'd say to him afterwards, Peter, could you not do that? Oh, sorry, I didn't realise. And then the next time it would be another word, an even worse word. So that was the most tricky, not for anything that he did, but I just think he misunderstood. Good question, though.
Tom, is there anything you'd like to ask Alan?
What's your lap time around Thruxton on your bike?
On my bicycle?
Yeah.
It wasn't particularly good, Tom.
Oh, he's got it as well. He's got it. He's actually got it. Look at this.
It really wasn't particularly good. Hang on, I have an app which tells me what it was. And bear in mind, just a mountain bike.
Right, okay, so it's a bit more draggy, isn't it? It's got bigger tyres and
big and high heels.
In fairness, it hasn't done. So I did 2.48 miles around the circuit of Thruxton.
That's right.
In 14 minutes and 10 seconds. You're going to tell me that's terrible, aren't you, Tom?
Not that good.
No.
It's a mountain bike, isn't it, mate? It's a mountain bike. It's not a road bike.
And also, I'm not used to riding a bike. I haven't ridden my bike for years.
Great, you can get out around the circuit. Can I just pop down there like tomorrow on my bicycle?
I was very lucky in that I asked Pat. I had to go and see Pat, the circuit manager, about something else, and I spoke to him on the phone. He's a lovely bloke. He's an absolutely smashing bloke. And he said, "Oh well, if you're coming down, because I was worried, can I legitimately come down and talk to you about this, because it's not an essential meeting?" And he said, "No, absolutely, you can come down. In fact, you can travel down here to do your exercise. So put your bike in the back of the car, and you can do some laps of the circuit." So I only did one lap. It was enough for me. My legs go a bit wobbly, to be honest, after 2.48 miles of.
Well, and Alan, you're probably hardly taking a racing line either, really, were you? You know, you literally.
Oh no, I absolutely.
Oh, you were.
Was.
Oh, in that case, then there's room for improvement.
And in fairness, I was quite grumpy with myself that I did Noble really badly, because the thing is.
Don't worry about it. I've done it all the time last year.
Yeah, and you want to get Tom to look at your tyre pressure. So Tom will soon sort your PSI out on your bike.
But it is odd. It's very vague, isn't it? The back part of the circuit. I mean, to all of you as drivers, when you're there on foot or on a bicycle, I mean, it's very wide and very vague.
Yeah, for sure. It's easy to run out of room though in a car, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's in a car, definitely out the going through Noble and Goodwood. There's a lot of different like lines you can take.
Yes,
you can get lost. But yeah, it when you walk it, you're like, loads of room, like no problem, easy flat. Take it in a car, it is millimeter towards the edge of the circuit.
The next time Alan Hyde asks you a question none of you like, then you can just be like, on your bike, see? Hey, there we are. Creasy, is there anything you'd like to ask Alan Hyde?
What's the best BTCC race you've witnessed?
That's a very good question, because we've had an awful lot of crackers, and most of them that come to mind are the ones where you've got a championship to be decided in the race. In recent years, you would have to look a very, very, very long way past the last race of last year that had everything. Previously, we had a quite supreme battle for the final race of the year with Josh and Ash Sutton. The race was absolutely unbelievable. It was round 30 of the champ. When was that? 2 years ago, Josh?
2018, yeah.
Yeah. So 2 years ago. And then when you go further back, you mentioned it, Rory, when we first started talking tonight, that I hold Nigel Mansell up as a bit of a hero and a legend of motor racing. Just about every race that Nigel Mansell competed in the BTCC was a memorable race. Didn't have to win. The fact that Nigel Mansell, a world champion, only just having won the championship, coming into the BTC, it was mega. I mean, it was absolutely fantastic, and people flocked into Donington Park to witness them. And you were just aware that you were part of something supremely big, you know, just to have Nigel. Quick story about Nigel. I remember Brands Hatch, and I popped in to see Nigel in the garage in the morning. And I was over keen, and I said, Nigel, any chance for a quick word for the fans? And he said, he just popped his head out the garage. He said, no, there's not enough people here yet. Give it another half an hour. And absolutely fantastic stuff. He was brilliant. So the Toka shootout, I don't know, or the one that Cleland won, possibly. So many.
So sad to say that we're literally almost out of time here on the BTC Racing Line. I mean, what a podcast this has been. I mean, Mr. Alan Hyde, everyone. I mean, we just love Uncle Alan. Absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
I clapped myself. I enjoyed that.
Good. Well, that's the whole idea. That's the kind of team we are, Alan. And speaking of which, as the season goes on, we really would like to get you back on the BTC Racing Line in some way, shape, or form.
Happy to.
So will you do that for us? Brilliant. Okay.
Absolutely.
That's that one ticked. And do you have a message for our fans? Because I know that you are passionate about British Touring Car Championship fans in particular, but particularly the fans of our team. What would you say to them this season?
Keep the faith. I mean, we all want to be out going racing, and we will do it when thank you, Tom. We'll do it when it's safe to do it. But I know all the work that's been going on behind the scenes to ensure, well, first of all, Alan Gow to put the calendar together. That was no mean feat to tally it up with ITV, which is a vital part of the championship in order to maintain the sponsors for the teams. He has been working incredibly hard for the teams, for the championship, and for the fans as well. So let's keep the faith and keep that first weekend in August strong in our minds, that if we're all sensible and carry on being sensible and doing what we're meant to do, then we can go racing.
Well, there we go. There we have it. You have heard it from almost the voice, if you like, of the British Touring Car Championship. It's been an absolute pleasure to have Alan Hyde here on the BTC Racing Line, and we're going to get Alan back as well at some point. So from me, Rory McAllister, from all our drivers, from the entire team, from all of our sponsors, from everyone that's involved with this fantastic team, BTC Racing, we'll see you in about, is it 4 weeks' time, isn't it? Whenever we're due to be at Alton Park, but of course we'll be back in our bedrooms and back in our houses. Who knows? Maybe, perhaps. We'll have to see what happens. So in between time, do follow us on all social media platforms. Tell all your friends, spread the word, make as many comments as you like. Thank you very much for watching the BTC Racing Line, and we'll see you next time from all of us when we'll be back at Alton Park. Cheerio for now. Bye-bye.
The BTC Racing Line for the fans.